Alright, so I finally got my ass back to the movie theater this weekend to check out something which at least wasn't another crappy sequel. The movie that I just went to see today was a film called Selfless, which is a science fiction thriller following this man named Damien. At the beginning, he's this old man played by Ben Kingsley who's very sick and about to pass away, but then he finds out that there's this technology available to him where he can switch into a younger body and live life anew. Of course, he has to take on a new identity and everything since he's going to look completely different, and since information about the technology hasn't been made public yet. But then, as can be expected in a movie of this type, later on in the film, as he learns more about what's going on, things start to go downhill and bad stuff happens. So, to my understanding, this film was made by the same guy who made The Cell. He's also done The Fall, which I haven't seen yet, but I will get around to it eventually. I don't know if I'm going to review it. And he's also done Mirror Mirror, which I'm not going to watch. Um, but as far as sort of comparisons go, The Cell was very much style over substance, where it had a lot of great visuals to it. It was kind of a fun movie to look at, but as far as the storyline goes, it wasn't very memorable. Um, it just. I can barely remember shit that happened in that movie. In the case of Selfless, it doesn't have quite as much going on visually. It feels like the director has really pulled back in terms of his style, which, to my understanding, he's known for making movies that look great but don't have much to them. And I thought that this story had a fair amount of substance going for it. As the main character, Damien, learns more about the reality of the situation, it does take on a more emotional pull, and there are a few scenes in it that tug at the heartstrings quite a bit. One nitpick that I have, though, with the main character is that, when Damien becomes younger and becomes, played by Brian Reynolds, that's a really dumb way to put it, but we'll go with it. He doesn't really pick up any of Ben Kingsley's mannerisms. Plus, Kingsley has this accent at the beginning of the film. It's not his usual English accent, though. He's got like, I don't know, it's kind of like a merging between a Jewish accent and like a New York accent. But once he becomes a younger man, he just completely drops that, and he has just a plain American accent, like the way that I'm talking. So I don't even know why Ben Kingsley was bothering to talk like that in the first place. It was kind of weird. Um, to my understanding, a lot of other critics apparently have been complaining that while the movie has this really cool and unique premise going for it, which it does, they say that they just took that premise and made a dumb, mindless action movie out of it. And there's really not that much action in this movie. Um, it feels a lot more like a character study in a way. There are a lot more scenes where they're concentrating on the characters in the movie, where there's just a lot of back and forth going between them. And that's not to say that the movie's devoid of action, because it does have some uh, action sequences in it, which I thought were pretty fun to watch. You could say that they were a little over the top. It didn't feel to me like they went way too overboard with it. The movie still felt fairly grounded. In particular, there's this scene during the second half with a car chase that I thought was really cool and fun to watch. Um, as far as complaints go, aside from that nitpick that I just mentioned with the accent, like, for one thing, during the first half of this movie, things were going really well. Like, I was genuinely invested and interested in what was going on. And then during the second half, it just kind of, the energy just sort of fizzled out. And it really felt like it was dragging on for a while. Like, I don't like taking out my cell phone during movies for obvious reasons, but I was tempted a few times to drag it out of my pocket and see what time it was. I mean, it just the movie has a pretty cool final act and a satisfying conclusion, but everything between that and the middle of the film was just filler, pretty much. And then another sort of complaint that I had with the movie was the bad guy. For one thing, his sort of henchmen, I guess you could call them. I would guess that, since this is a secret project that they were involved in, that they should have this sort of anonymity to them, but they're all wearing something in plain sight that, identifies who they are and who they're working for. So that was pretty dumb. And then for another thing, there's a scene where the main villain has this monologue, and he reveals a little depth to his character. And I was thinking, this is interesting. This is a villain who, um, doesn't exactly see what he's doing as a bad thing. But then right after that, he does something completely irredeemable, and it just turns him into a pretty flat movie villain. So, in the end, I thought that it was a pretty solid movie. It's definitely another one of those films that's worth seeing once. And, if you're interested in seeing it, then by all means go see it. Solid flick, not great. I was seriously thinking about buying it on Blu-ray during that second half, but then once it started slowing down, I just started liking it less and less and less. So anyway, that's pretty much all I've got to say about Selfless, and I hope you all have a good one.